Hi everybody, my name is David Perez and welcome to 7680. It is now mid-August and it feels nice to get the gears back in motion after taking much of July to kind of do what teachers do in the summer. And it's good to be back creating content for you guys and recording videos again. This is the welcome video. It is the first video that you'll be watching in the semester. We're going to go over a bunch of different things. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. It seems I came in just over an hour, so not too bad for your first lecture. I do hope you guys enjoy it and are ready for what I hope is going to be a really nice, not just a single semester, but for both semesters in this sequence. So let's get started on the next slide, and I will see you very soon. What can you expect from this video? Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. In this video, we're going to cover a whole bunch of different things, but we're mainly going to stay on the topic of some basic premises having to do with the course. I do want to introduce myself formally in the next slide, and then we'll jump right into somewhat of a highlighted review of the syllabus. And then we're going to spend some time on course mechanics, and we'll talk about how the course is set up and where you can find the information and stuff like that. And then we'll end off with the most important slides of the entire semester, and those are the key to successes here in 7680. Let's get started with some introductions. Yeah, sure, let's get some introductions out of the way here. I like to do this early in the semester for a couple of different reasons, but mostly so that you kind of get to know me a little bit better. Even though we are doing this class virtually, I'm hoping that you begin to see how my experience is and kind of the angle from which I am giving you the information is not only here to help you write your dissertation, because that is the end goal, but also to kind of help us make ourselves, and I do mean ourselves, better teachers throughout the process. And I guess a part of that is understanding where I'm coming from and my angle from which I speak to you. So let me see where I want to start this. Start with the DOE. I've been a DOE teacher, Department of Education teacher, for 23 years now. And when I say that out loud, it seems like a really long time, and it kind of is. I've been basically in the same building for all those 23 years. So it's been a little bit of a career so far. Have a little ways to go, but we're definitely on the right track here. At least I think. I'm a regular teacher in a regular PS IS. I've throughout the course of those 23 years, I've pretty much taught in every single special education environment that the DOE has to offer, and some of which are not offered any longer. My most restrictive setting was many years ago, where I taught in a 617 class. 617. So let's break down that ratio real quick. 6 is 6 students, 1 teacher, right? 6-1, me the teacher, and then 7 paraprofessionals. So when you think about most restrictive settings or least restrictive settings on the other end of the spectrum, we talk about the different ratios of student to teacher. In that particular class that I was referencing to, there was the 6 students were all multiply handicapped, and they had 0 to very little mobility. We had the 1 teacher, which was me, and then each student had their own paraprofessional. The extra paraprofessional, because it was 617, so we had 1 extra paraprofessional, was a bathroom paraprofessional. So that was kind of interesting. On the other end of the spectrum, the least restrictive environments I've taught in are obviously general education classes. Taught everything in between, from self-contained 12-1, 12-1-2, ICT classes, which I believe now in elementary is 32, which is 32 and 2 teachers, and sometimes you'll get a paraprofessional in there. And I tell you this because a lot of the scenarios and a lot of the environments in which you're going to, whether you're going to be doing it through observation or through actual teaching, I have a good idea of what you're going to be looking at to some degree. Obviously, each classroom is a little bit different, but I have experience in many of the different situations that you're going to find yourself in. At Brooklyn College, I've been at Brooklyn College. I've been lecturing for 15 years, which is also kind of cool, and the course that we're taking now, the research course, I've taught the course in some variety or another for about 30, maybe even more, 30 different trials. So essentially, what you're going to get from this semester, from the videos and the lectures from this semester, are a distillation of 30 different attempts to get it right. And each time is a little bit different. I add, I subtract, and I try to put as many fresh recordings as I can together. For example, this one is a fresh recording. So that is definitely a benefit to our classroom. Let's talk about my educational background. I'm originally from Miami, and I came to New York for college, and obviously stayed here for a lot longer than that. In fact, I've been a New Yorker longer than I've been a Miamian. Um, and I originally got my degree from a small private school in Manhattan, and I got my degree in child psychology. And almost right away, I was hired by my school. I had passed my exams, but I didn't have my master's yet. During that time, I did complete my master's, and then once I finished my master's, I got I was looking at what I could do next after my master's, because I had to get something called a 30 or above. And for those of you that don't know, a 30 or above means you're getting 30 credits beyond your master's. When you get those 30 credits, right, you're 30 or above, what essentially means is you're going to get a nice little pay bump. And it's a really important steps for a lot of young teachers to get that pay bump fairly early in their careers. And obviously, more income is always makes things a little bit easier. So for my third year or above, someone gave me some really, really good advice, and it was kind of transformative in some ways. It actually changed my life in many ways. And I'm going to give that advice to you right now. And the person said to me, Perez, don't waste your time on bogus credits and, kind of, I think they're called G credits, and they're basically unmatriculated credits. And the person said to me, make yourself a more marketable teacher with your 30 credits or above. Get something that will make you a more marketable teacher. And with that in mind, I went to St. John's. I enrolled there for something called a professional diploma in curriculum design. I had an interest in that. And when I finished my 30 credits, I went to my advisor. My advisor was a young lady by the name of Sister Burke. And I said, Sister Burke, I finished my 30 or above. I got my little professional diploma, stuck out my hand. I said, thank you very much for everything. And she looked at me and said, where do you think you're going? I said, I got my pay bump. I'm good to go. She goes, no way. No way. She goes, you need to finish your doctorate. Now, I know you don't know who Sister Burke is. At least I don't think you do. But when Sister Burke says something, you kind of listen. And I did. I listened to her, and I finished up my course requirements for my doctorate. I ran through my dissertation in 3 years, and I eventually defended. And I think I defended almost 13 years ago. So it's been a while since I've been in kind of on your side of the classroom. But in the end, Sister Burke's advice was terrific, because it got me my doctorate. I was still fairly young when I got it, so I had time to kind of use it and implement it and play with it. And it landed me at Brooklyn College, which I have to say has been a pretty awesome afternoon gig all these years. So that's me kind of in a nutshell. Personally, I am a proud father of 4 great, awesome kids. And my wife definitely gets a shout out every single semester, because while I'm up here recording hopefully awesome content for you, she's downstairs taking care of business for me to be able to do what I love. So thank you to her, and thank you for my kids for being cool kids and kind of letting me have my space when I do need to record. Okay, so that's about it for me, and I'm going on 8 minutes for this slide, so I am definitely going to wrap it up. But at least you have a little indication of who I am and where I'm coming from. And you'll get to know me more through my lectures, just because I know how my lectures go, and I like to throw in stories about my about my schooling and about the different things that have taken place over my career during those lectures. So it's nice to meet you on that end. Let's go to the next slide and take a look at something that you could do on your end. So we'll make this slide ultra quick. This is a slide that I would typically use when we were in person, just to kind of get to know the crowd a little bit and see where you are, see what's going on out there. I especially like the question there, one person that you like to have dinner with and why. You'd be surprised how much I learned by what people have to say in response to that question. So I left it here for one specific reason. A lot of students do like to virtually meet their teachers. So if you do want to virtually meet and you eventually want to send me a little email or something saying, "Hi, how are you, Perez? This is who I am." I love to get those little emails. Just please, if you don't mind, include one person that you like to have dinner with and why. I always find the answer to that question really, really, really interesting. So we'll leave it at that. Obviously, you don't have to email me if you don't want to, but if you do, it's a nice way to break the ice. Next few slides here, I'd like to go over the syllabus. If you want to have a copy out when we go through it, might be helpful. I do have some screenshots that will help you right here. For the syllabus review, I like to take kind of a highlight approach to it, meaning that I'm not going to go over the entire syllabus. There's a lot of kind of, I guess, mumbo jumbo throughout the course, throughout the syllabus that kind of has to be there. For example, at the very bottom, the course description. I don't think I need to go over that. Whatever I don't go over, obviously you're free to read at your leisure. It's fascinating, trust me. So let's do some of the big items here. First off, the class number is 76. Class number is 7680, Research Methods in Special Education. We will be having an online kind of hybrid type of course. As of this recording, right now, I think Brooklyn College is still unsure about whether it's going to be hybrid or fully online. My thought is that we are going to be fully online. At least that's the way I'm going to treat these recordings, as if we are not going to have any in-person meetings. We'll talk about some Google Meets and stuff like that a little bit later. But for now, we are going to be looking at an online class. That email address at the very right there in blue, David Perez 11230 at AOL. That is going to be the primary email that we're going to be using for communication. There are a couple of other ways that you could reach out to me. However, those ways are going to significantly reduce the time that it takes for me to respond to you. So for example, on Blackboard, if you respond on Blackboard and it goes to my CUNY email, I do check it, but I have to be honest, I may check it once a day, maybe once every 2 days, whereas David Perez 11230, I check it, basically the moment that I have a little free time. I do take a little bit of pride. I do take a little bit of pride in getting back to people as quickly as I can. Usually within the hour. Sometimes if you catch me in the afternoons when I am kind of working on on grading or different things throughout the semester, sometimes you'll get an instant response. The only amendment to that is going to be Friday night and Saturday. I don't answer emails because I do observe the Sabbath. But Saturday night and then Sunday morning, I'm back on. So this is not one of those types of email addresses that goes into like a huge kind of like a huge inbox. You will get a response. As far as office hours, Office hours, the way we've been handling it, or the way I've been handling through the online scenario, is that we kind of jump into a Zoom, either a Google Meets or a Zoom platform, something like that. I will have office hours, but for now, I'll leave it open. If I have if I have free time and you do want to meet and it's something that's going to be, just a matter of jumping onto the computer, we can schedule something at any time. I do recommend as many online meetings as you need, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in supports. Let me change the slide here and look at the next piece. Cool. So let's talk about the text, because a lot of students do have questions about the text, which are listed in front of you. Um, what I've been telling students for many years is the text that Brooklyn College offers you is optional in this class. It is a good text. As of last night or 2 nights ago, it is older versions of this text are available on Amazon for, I think, less than $1 or something like that. So if you do want to buy it, by all means, the Mills book there, Action Research, is going to be a really good resource for you. What I did, I guess maybe several years ago, was I got tired of tired of trying to match my lecture with the text that was presented to me. So I kind of wrote my own little guide, my own little textbook. It's not quite as comprehensive as the Mills or the Leedy or some of the other ones that you'll come across there, but it does pretty closely match. It does pretty closely match what I'm teaching to what's in the text. I will provide that textbook free of charge. It'll be under the resource section of your Google Classroom. So hopefully that will save you a little bit of money and more closely match what it is I'm trying to do. I will say, though, historically speaking, most students do not use a textbook at all. My lectures, and I know you don't know this because this is we're only 2 or 3 slides into your first video, but my lectures are fairly comprehensive, and if you just kind of follow them along the way that you're prescribed to, I find that the book sometimes is a little unnecessary. So kind of bear that in mind. Moving along here, and on this slide, I wanted to go over all of the requirements for this semester. And bear in mind that as you kind of read through this, you're obviously not going to be able to do much with the information that's in front of you right now. Each one of these course requirements, each one of these assignments is going to have plenty of lecture time and plenty of due diligence that's dedicated in order for you to finish and complete any one of these assignments. But just so you can kind of see it and get like the first inkling of what it is that's going to be expected from you throughout the course of this semester. You are going to have Section 1 and Section 2. Those first 2 requirements are at the top. You're going to have those will be polished and completed. And we'll talk about what Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, 4, and 5 are going to mean for you, in fact, pretty shortly here. But for now, Section 1 is your introduction, worth 25 points. Section 2 is your literature review. That's going to be kind of like the centerpiece of our semester. The meat of the semester is going to be located in that literature review, so it's a total of 35 points when you add the citation page. There will be one online forum post, and we're going to be using Blackboard to do that, the Blackboard forums, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that when the time comes. And then we're going to break out into section number 3, which is going to be your methodology. It's going to be a little how-to piece of how your research is actually going to unfold and how it's going to look like. But we're not going to complete that entire piece. We're only going to come up with a concept map for it, and that will be where we start the second semester with section number 3. There is that final requirement there, which is going to be a cohesion piece between sections 1 through 3. And for many of you, you may be asking yourself, well, shouldn't all 3 pieces obviously be cohesive? And the answer is yes, they should be cohesive. However, that is not always the case. So I do add those 10 points there to make sure that sections 1, 2, and the concept for 3 do kind of come together. Take a look at the next slide, because this is what it looks like in plain English. As you can see there at the top, you got sections 1, 2, and the concept map of 3. You got the online forum, and then the cohesion piece. And then a little more information that I could add on this slide is going to be that you could expect to write somewhere between 25 and 30 pages for this semester. And even though it's not going to necessarily apply for this semester, it will apply for the next, in which you are going to need some sort of in-person or virtual class in which you're going to do your actual thesis, your actual data collection. Again, more on that as the weeks follow, but so you could have a kind of an outlook towards what the future is going to hold. One last thing before we click on the next slide here is that you'll also take a note that for the requirements, there's very little that's required from you other than the writing that you're already going to do for your thesis. So that is nicely streamlined, and for your own knowledge, that whatever work that you are going to be doing for during the semester is going to kind of go right into your thesis. There's not a lot of extra reflection and writing pieces that will go along with it. Instead, everything, I wouldn't say everything, but 90% of it will go right into your thesis. Got one more slide here. Let's do a couple of quick academic policies and things of this nature. So right in the middle, our grading contract is produced by. In fact, most of the stuff is produced by Brooklyn College. It's not necessarily up to me. You have that grading scale right there in the middle. Just get on my little highlighter here. This is a good one, academic integrity, and it most certainly applies to the research course. For the purpose of transparency and clarity, all the work that you turn in automatically gets put through a plagiarism check. It is a plagiarism check that I've bought several years ago, so it's not one of those free ones. It's something that tends to be a little more sophisticated. And obviously, we're not looking for 100% authentic work, but there is that range of 70 to 80% original work that I'm looking for. Anything below that, and it probably triggers some sort of email from me of hey, what's going on here? But just so you know, there is that level of back checking that does take place with your work. At the very bottom, if you do have some sort of accommodations and you are registered with the Office of Disabilities in Brooklyn College, and you do require extra time, you do require some other accommodations, by all means, please reach out to me. It's probably better to do that earlier in the semester than later in the semester. I've had the instances where work has been very, very late, and then the accommodations were presented to me, and frankly, it's great. I don't mind giving the accommodations. I don't mind that at all. But then I, as a teacher, can't do anything to support what your particular learning needs might be. So definitely something that you can reach out to me, and if it requires discussion, we'll talk about it. If it doesn't, then that's okay. I'm just being informed, and that's fine too. I left the top one right up here for very, very last, because this will always come into play. Not you. It's going to apply to someone else, because your work is going to be in on time and perfect every single time. But just in case that life does tend to get in the way, and for some of you, for a percentage of you, it will, the late policy is as follows. You are deducted 5%, about a point and a fraction, for each day of lateness. Okay, not each week, each day of lateness, and that's important for you to hear, because a lot of times what happens is work doesn't come in on that due date, whatever it is, March 23rd, midnight. It doesn't get in on time, and instead of looking at it and saying, okay, you know what, I didn't get it in today, but I'm going to get it in tomorrow or the next day, and kind of minimizing the damage on the point totals of your semester, it kind of just keeps going. What I'm hoping is, and in the past it's worked, that it's by day of lateness. So even if you miss, one deadline or two deadlines, it's not the end of the world. When it really begins to impact your grade is when it gets left for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden now, the points really start flying off. I have to be honest, I could care less about points. I know everyone says, or I should say not everyone, but it's probably the least favorite part of my job is to have to assign a grade to your papers, to have to take a rubric and apply it to your paper. It's not something that I particularly appreciate, but it is part of my role, and I do take that role quite seriously. So what I'm hoping is that this instills in you the fact that, listen, you miss a deadline or so, it's not going to impact your overall grade too much. It's to eliminate the chronic lateness, and kind of keep you on track. And in that sense, it's probably just as much for you as it is for me. I don't want to talk any more about that because you guys are going to be fantastic. But I do want to go to the next slide. Let's take a quick look at the course outline here. Starting with the top is the welcome lecture, which obviously you're listening to now, and it's followed by lecture 1, 2, and 3, headed down towards lecture number 10. You'll notice that the lectures are color coded. That's because the intention as of this recording, is to release those lectures as a group, as like a little bunch, for you to listen to review, to work on, and then give it some time for that to happen, and then move on to the next color. And it's basically centered around your assignments. So if you take a look at the first couple, which are in blue, you'll notice that they're very much centered around the topic selection and what eventually is going to be your section number 1. My goal and purpose is that after lecture number 3, you have all the needed tools in order to write section number 1. Then after a brief period of time, could be a couple of weeks, for you to kind of run through those lectures, we'll publish the next set of lectures, and we'll do that throughout the course. You will notice that there's not a ton of detail as to what is going into the lecture. That's because I noticed that after the first couple of weeks, no one even really looks at it. They just kind of go with the lectures as they come. But what is there is going to be fairly accurate as to what the overall theme of that lecture, of what that lecture will be. So kind of keep that in mind. I think that's it for this one. All right, for real. This is the last slide on the syllabus. You'll notice that the very top there, that top column, says 3 Google Meets. So that's the very, very bottom of your course outline. I do like to meet virtually. I think I had mentioned it earlier in one of the previous slides. So I usually plan for about three Google Meets as a class. What I notice is that the first one is very, very well attended, because my Google Meets are usually optional. They're there if you don't understand something, if you need a little bit of extra support, if you want to hear some questions being answered. So I noticed that the first one is very, very highly attended, probably close to 100% attendance. It's new, it's fresh, it's something that you guys are going to want to tune into. Once we get into the second one, I think students start to get a general idea of the pattern and the little mechanics that take place within the course. So that's a little bit less attended, and then towards the end, it tends to be lightly attended. We'll leave that choice for you for a little bit later, but I do expect to hold three Google Meet sessions. Dates will be determined. It's usually after I release one of the sets of videos. I'll give it maybe a week or two for everyone to have a chance to listen and absorb whatever it is. Then come back with the Google Meet, answer some questions, have some discussion, and then that will set you up for the work that's associated with those lectures. Last piece here at the very, very bottom, which I guess is probably one of the most important things that we speak about in the syllabus, and that is your due dates. So your due dates are, well, first off, you'll notice that they're not necessarily in chronological order. That online forum post is somewhere in between there, but I wanted you to see the main requirements, which is section 1, 2, and concept map of 3. Your section number 1 is not due for a little while, October 4th. So you have quite a few weeks between listening to this and your section number 1. Section number 2 is due somewhere around Thanksgiving, which is kind of nice because to some degree a good bulk of the work between section 1, 2, and the online forum are kind of taken care of before Thanksgiving. And then finally we have the concept map coming at the very, very end of the semester, and the last day is on or close to December 20th. I kind of put these in a nice, with some nice spacing in between them. I do like to make those due dates pretty set in stone. If there is any wiggle room, if there is any play, it will usually be to extend the deadline. It almost has never been to bring a deadline a little bit forward. So kind of have that in mind. Also, if we do change any due dates, I'll make it kind of like a group thing where we can't talk about it, so we can get some opinions. But usually it's for your benefit. So I've never really had an issue with the due dates, but do mark them down in your calendar, because once you fall behind on your due dates, it's really hard to catch up. Let's move it along here. This is an important series of slides for me to present to you for many different reasons, but for the most part, what I've noticed over the past especially 3 semesters since we've been teaching online. I think it's been 3 or 4 semesters already, so it's been a while. Is that when we were in person, it was fairly easy to speak to people, to get an idea of where a person was standing with their work, and whether they were behind, whether they were ahead. And when we went to the online forum, to some degree there was a lot of anonymity to the relationship between myself and the students. So I wanted to include this series of slides in order to definitely highlight for you what are the different supports that the class can provide. And I say the class and not just me, because there are different supports that will come from the classroom as well as for myself, and I definitely want to showcase them for you now. Let's talk about these 4 levels of support that I think are going to help you to some degree. The first one is going to appear to be quite obvious at initial glance, but sometimes students forget. So keep in mind that the lectures are obviously asynchronous, they're pre-recorded, they're on demand. It should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't be scared to listen to particular parts of the lecture a couple of different times. If you don't necessarily get it the first time, if you're unsure about what's expected of you, or more what the process is in completing a particular part of your thesis, go ahead and review and revisit particular slides. I'll mention it later, but I'll mention it here again. there's a couple of different formats that you're going to have for the lectures. One of them is going to be movie mode, where you just press play and it kind of goes on its own, and I become like I become like a podcast in a way. But the other way is going to be through the individual PowerPoint slides. So you'll be able to go into a particular PowerPoint slide, click on the little speaker button, which I'll show you in a little while, and revisit just that one particular slide without having to go through the entire, quote unquote, through the entire movie. So if you find yourself a little confused, go ahead and go back and revisit. The second one is going to be email. My email address is davidperez11230 at AOL. And I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. I do take pride in getting back to my students, certainly within 12 hours. If for some reason you haven't gotten a response within a day, by all means, gently give me a little push to with a follow-up email. It means that probably something has gone wrong. That first email there, the David Perez, is going to be the fastest way of doing it. I do have two other email addresses that are associated with the course. The second one is the Gmail account, and that's what I use in order to create the Google Classroom, that we'll be using. Again, we'll look at that in a couple slides, and then finally the last one is going to be my CUNY address. Those will have a delay on them. I just don't check them as often as I do David Perez. I do check the Gmail a little bit more often than the CUNY. The CUNY I may check once every couple of days. So if you need support and you need something kind of quick, by all means, please use David Perez 11230 at AOL. Another level of support beyond just the email is going to be those online classes that we're going to schedule throughout the course of the semester. Those are really good if you find yourself a little bit disassociated with the process. If the asynchronous format is kind of not working for you, and you just need like questions answered, or you need some kind of human interaction with the process, by all means, those are going to work for you. And an extension of that is going to be a phone and online conference. I'm a really, really big proponent of jumping onto a Google Meet, during the afternoon and answering some questions, maybe doing a little writing together. We'll share screens. I've had a lot of success doing that, and I'm pretty open as to when I could do that. Pretty much from any time from 5:30 and on. I'm usually available. I'm usually available for those kind of mini conferences. And I'll say something here, and take it for what it's worth. There will be a nice percentage of you that will never use any one of these things, and that's fine too. If lecture is done the way that I hope that it's done, I hope that none of you will have to use any of these things. Now, I know that's not realistic, but there will be a percentage of you that will just kind of do your work quietly and independently without any need for support, and that's also fine. Don't think that that's kind of like an odd piece. But for the most part, we do exchange a lot of emails, and we do tend to talk a lot throughout the course of the semester. I debated whether to do this. I debated whether to present these slides in the past 5 minutes, because I've been talking a lot already, but I will. And this will be really quick. These are actual real emails. I'm not going to read them to you. You can go ahead and hit the pause button in whatever platform you've chosen to view this, and kind of read them. The purpose of me giving you these little mini models is the fact that if we are going to communicate via email and through the written word, I need to have the ability to help you. And if you take a look at this one in front of you, which was on March 12th of '09, and for the life of me, I don't remember who wrote it, but someone did. This is what the person wrote. How are you supposed to help a person when they write something like this to you? Take a look at the next one, though. This is almost like the other end of the rainbow here, where the first one had just way too much information about stuff that I don't need to know, but this one had almost no information. It it's almost like it was equally as difficult to help this student as it was to the last one. So let's try to find middle ground here. So of course this would be a model of an email that actually worked out really, really well. What I happen to like about this particular email is that the person was very specific in the help that they needed. Um, I know sometimes we don't, sometimes we're completely lost and we don't even know what to ask. If I've done my job well during lectures, that shouldn't be an issue here. It should be more a matter of, look, Perez, this is what I'm struggling with. This is what I have so far. Can you help me take the next step? I'm kind of stuck in the mud. Can you pull me out of the mud a little bit? And yeah, I absolutely could try. But you could see how this email really kind of is that middle ground between not too much and not too little, and is phrased just right. And of course, they get a smiley face. All right, two more slides here on seeking help. Um, you're going to have to be somewhat proactive if you do need help. Um, the way that distance learning works, and I'm sure you've been at it for a couple of semesters now, is that, to be honest, I won't know whether you're struggling or not. When we're in person and we're on campus and I see people on a week to week basis, I kind of have a good idea of who's kind of like on pace and with me and kind of moving forward with our arms locked together, and who has fallen behind. I don't have that luxury through the remote learning. So you have to kind of be proactive. As part of that, your lectures are going to have something called a try it now slide. And a try it now slide is a basic kind of like important task that has to do with one of the assignments that have been assigned. And a lot of times when you do a try it now, or when you attempt to complete a try it now, that the task that's associated with the try it now, it helps you understand whether you're confused about that particular segment of the lecture. So it becomes a very good step to share with me, if you do decide to reach out. Once you see the try it now slides, and there'll be one later on in this lecture when we actually get to some content, hopefully towards the end here. Um, excuse me. You'll see how it becomes very, very easily shareable. I will say one more thing about the try it now slides. 9 out of 10 times, maybe even 10 out of 10 times, whatever you do during a try it now will be a cut and paste activity for your thesis, meaning that as you write it, you can really be writing it in your thesis, because eventually you are going to use it. Um, I'm sure I mentioned that later on in the later on during lecture, but just so you could hear it for the first time now. My suggestion is that as you're going through lecture, you do the try it nows. I mean, it's just a nice, easy way to kind of practice some muscle memory with what's being presented during lecture. With all that being said, for the vast majority of you, at least if history repeats itself to some degree, for the majority of you, the online content will be enough. Yes, in fact, it will be more than enough for most of you. And not everyone is going to seek that in person interaction. What the way I like to look at the way I'd like to look at help and personal interactions is I am available as much as you need me to be available. For some of you that are listening to this, we'll never meet. You're going to submit your assignments, obviously via remote format, and all I'll do is be able to read your work. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. That's what remote learning is kind of about. But just have in the back of your mind that even though you don't need to, I am here as much as you need me to be here. And that's all I have to say about that. Let's talk about a textbook. So for many years now, I've had some friction with the textbooks that have been chosen for the research class by our department. There was nothing wrong with the text. I mean, they were good textbooks. But what I found was that they were so comprehensive that I mean, we were using maybe 80%, I'm sorry, 20% of the textbook, of the content of the textbooks, and 80% was, again, good stuff, good information, but just with, outside of the scope of our class. So a couple semesters ago, what I decided to do was write my own textbook. And I know that seems kind of grand, but it really isn't. It's more of a manual that's going to really match this particular class and this particular set of steps that I'm trying to present to you, and not only that, but in the order that I present them to you. So you have an option of a Perez made text. It's pretty experimental. It's still kind of raw, kind of like a little beta test. However, the good part is it's free of charge. It's going to be available on Blackboard or on Google Classroom, and it'll be either on the drive pages, or in the document section of Blackboard. Uh, Most of you are not going to need to open up this textbook. Lectures will provide everything that you need. For those of you that do like a little bit of extra support, and some extra documentation that's in the written form, the textbook really does match, kind of, to some degree, word for word, what it is that lecture is trying to convey. So look at it as a resource. It is there. It is free of cost. So you could use it definitely at your leisure. I would not buy the two textbooks that are recommended for the class. I know I put them on the syllabus, but we all go through that, the horse and pony show as teachers sometimes. So um, if you do buy it, you could buy a version of, maybe two versions ago, or two editions ago, I think they call them. At last check, maybe like 2 semesters ago, I saw like older versions for like 50 cents on Amazon or something. So definitely don't buy the new version of it. Um, I will probably ask at some point if anybody has used it, and maybe pick your brain a little bit about whether you think that the book is good. If it's not good, get like get a critique on it. But other than that, use it at your leisure. I just realized that there were some redundant slides there towards the end in the last series. I'm gonna leave them in there just for now, but I do apologize for putting in that extra textbook information. I had mentioned earlier. Just I can't go back now and edit that information out now, so it's a little redundant, but that'll be all right. So with the next set of slides, I would like to look at some different lecture mechanics, and what I mean by mechanics is the different processes that I like to institute within the course, in order to make, I don't know, things like delivering content a little bit easier, turning in assignments a little bit easier. That's what I mean by the lecture mechanics. I think it'll become obvious once we take a look at the first couple of slides here. So to start off this idea of lecture mechanics, I want to take a look at our Google Classroom. For those of you that have been at this for several semesters, or are teaching within the Google Classroom platform, and you're familiar with this, by all means, you can feel free to skip this. For those of you that will be using Google Classroom for the first time in Brooklyn College, go ahead and sit back, relax, and let me show you around the place. Um, First off, this is what our Google Classroom front page will look like. It is the announcements page, and if you take a look, I've been building for the past couple days some different things that I want to present to you, right? Different types of content. So you can see I have one save announcement, and that's probably the announcement that you read in order to get here. Uh, I do tend to check in. I do tend to check in through the announcements. at least once a week. Uh, Definitely within, once every 2 weeks. I like to send a beginning of the week announcement just to say hello and make sure that things are going well. Give you some suggestions for things that you could be doing that week, but it will pop up in your announcements page, kind of like on your front page there. Another thing that I will mention here is that Google Classroom does have the feature that it will send you an email every time that I post something or announce something. I find that to be a very useful feature. I think it's a default, so it'll happen automatically. But for those of you that it is not happening for, there is a setting button somewhere or another that you could add that feature to our classroom. Uh, for those of you that do want to share that classroom code, you'll see it there on the top left hand corner. You'll notice that just get my little highlighter out here. You'll notice that the announcements were under the stream function, and now we're under the classroom tab. And I have 3 different topics. I think I'm going to maybe include one extra topic, so you'll see it'll look a little bit different by the time that you get it. Remember, this is a couple of weeks away from opening day, but for the most part, all your lectures are going to appear in that lecture column. And as you can see, the welcome video, which you're watching now, is posted. Hopefully, by the time you get it, there's other videos that have been posted as well. And then if you kind of move downwards, you'll see the assignments. You will be turning in your work, your semester work through Google Classroom. It does help me organize myself, and it helps me get you the feedback that you're going to need in a expeditious, in a very efficient way. So that will certainly be a part of it. And then the last one is on the next slide, which is going to be not only your assignments, but at the very bottom, your resources. I only have one little file opened up on your resources, which is the research sentence starters, and we'll talk about that in a future lecture. And of course, everything is still in draft because I haven't really put this into play yet. But this is the basic format from which you're going to take all the content and then upload all the assignments that are needed for the course. So that is it for Google Classroom. If you have any specific questions, obviously you could always email me. But I think that kind of gives you a nice little overview of what you could expect to see as far as on Google Classroom and the mechanics of it. I want to do 2 more slides on mechanics, just to kind of prep you for what lecture will kind of be like when we do start getting into different areas of content here. Until now, and I'm assuming you guys have had other lectures previously. Usually this is the last course, not the first. But most other courses, because I've taught them, I know that there's a lot of digression. There's a lot of videos and reflection and opinions, and you have a lot of discussions on a lot of general topics, and there's value in that. I don't mean to downplay that. But for this particular course, I found that a very cut and dry and a very straightforward approach is going to be the best course of action. I'm going to give you an example of that on the next slide. So in the last slide, I did mention the cut and dry nature of this course and the intention of this lecture. But I think more of an academic term for it would be that the lectures, or at least what I strive to do with my lectures, is to provide some sort of explicit nature, an explicit nature to it. And to that degree, I am a DOE teacher. I am a DOE teacher through and through, because as I go through the lectures, I think about a particular research skill or a particular item that I want to address with you or to teach you. Then provide some sort of model, like a little active engagement type of deal with your try it now slides. And then very much once that series is over, the expectation is that you will be able to take the knowledge that was presented to you again in an explicit format and apply it to your own personal research and your own personal thesis. And to that degree, it's brought me to the idea that your lectures are going to be kind of an accumulation of individual skills that when we put them all together will teach you how to run through that research process, how to run through that research model for yourself, not only to get you to satisfy the requirements of the course, because obviously that is why we're here, but also to some degree to make you a better teacher. I don't want to get into that part of it just yet because I do want to address how research and the research process does make us better teachers, but it is certainly a part of the explicit nature of it. I wasn't exactly sure where to put this particular slide, but it is something that I definitely wanted to address early on in the semester, and I knew that I wanted it in the welcome video. I guess here is as good a spot as any, and it's something that I want you all to be aware of. Um, having taught your type of cohort before, meaning the traditional master students, I know that many of you are going to have many different experiences and many different roles that you are part of right now in your professional lives. From experience, I know that a good part of you will be teaching and will be part of an active classroom. But I know that there will also be a cross section of you that are either doing student teaching or you're doing teaching observations and things as such. The mandate, bullet point number 2, the mandate is going to be at some point in the year to collect data from students. So that mandate cannot change. We have to collect data. The 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 aspect that I want you to be aware of is that it may look kind of different for you if you're a teacher versus if you're observing. I don't want to get too far into it now because it's the welcome video and it's August, and that seems like a really far off conflict that could arise. But for now, I just want you to know that I am aware of the differences between the two different types of students. And I do believe that there will be opportunity throughout the course of the semester to differentiate at least somewhat my instruction between those that are observing and those that are actually teaching. If it's something for you that is an issue, it probably won't be with the students that are teaching currently. You're kind of plug and play as far as who you're going to be using for your data collection. You know who the children are. You have a class. But for those of you that are having observation hours and are doing observation hours, if you have a concern early on, by all means email me. But I think it's something that we can certainly address and cover in the coming weeks as we go forward. As we head into the twilight moments of this lecture, I'd like to take one slide to talk about 4 keys to success. 4. Even though at face value it doesn't look that way, I actually spent a lot of time on this particular slide because when you ask a teacher, what are the keys to success in your class? It doesn't matter what level you're teaching or what school you're teaching at. There's a lot that you want to tell your student. There's a lot of advice that you want to give your student. And what I had to do, or what I kind of told myself to do, was just put it on a single slide. And whatever you can't fit onto that single slide, you know what? You're going to have to deliver it throughout the course of lectures. So these are 4 things that I came up with, and these are the right keys. So looking at the first one here, look at lecture as kind of like a podcast. you really should be making lecture a part of your weekly routine. Now I know that may not necessarily line up with your learning style or learning preferences, but if you ask me, if you kind of set aside time on a weekly basis, it prevents things from like gathering on you, from bunching up on you. So, by all means, please, as long as as long as it's not going to impact your life in every possible way, make lecture a part of your weekly routine. If we were on campus, you would have had to do that anyway, or you would have been forced to do that. So you know what? Continue that tradition to some degree, and if you have school on Monday or on Tuesday, whatever night of the week that you've chosen, set aside time where you could actually listen to lecture. The reason that I ask you for time is because bullet point number 2, it's important to watch the entire lecture. You don't necessarily have to do it all in one night or all in one sitting, but get into the habit of listening to the entire lecture. Undoubtedly, there's going to be little pieces here and there where you're going to want to fast forward a little bit, and jump ahead or jump back. But for the most part, force yourself to sit through the entire lecture. No lecture is more than 2 hours. In fact, most of them are right at about an hour or about an hour and a half. So the actual time that you're being asked to listen to the lectures is not that great of an investment. But the reward, the profit off that investment is going to be tremendous. But because you're going to be able to understand the sequence of the research. If you do it the other way and you're just jumping around lectures and you're back and forth, what essentially is going to happen is that the information is going to become disjointed and it's not going to make sense to you. If the information doesn't make sense to you, once you actually do sit down to write, inevitably your writing is going to reflect that type of is going to reflect those gaps that jumping around has created for you. So please, pretty please, with sugar on top, listen to the entire lecture. Okay, I try to be somewhat entertaining, maybe to the point of being a little over dramatic. I am aware of it. It just is what it is, man. Bullet point number 3. You have to start writing. Yeah, I know. It's the first thing you're listening to. It's the first lecture. We haven't. You have to start writing, meaning that once you get into lecture number 2 and you get your first try it nows and you get to your first ability to really begin to explore your research, you have to start writing. Too often, especially at the beginning of the semester, we get lulled into a false sense of security. I have weeks and weeks ahead of me. I know we have weeks ahead of us, but if you don't start writing now, you're going to be setting yourself up for a more difficult process than it needs to be. Finally, hopefully you can find value in the research process, and that's not a BC thing, right? It's not Professor Perez thing. It's almost like a David Perez thing. I am sharing this process with you, and what I'm hoping is that it makes you a better teacher. It's making your craft, your professional craft, just a little bit more refined. Think about it like this. If you have a kid or a group of kids that's struggling and you want to provide them some sort of intervention for their struggle, don't you want to know whether that intervention worked or not? Of course you do. If not, you're just kind of like groping around in the dark looking for answers of the difficulties that your students are having. This research process, the value that I want you to find in the research process, has to do with taking those research steps and internalizing them so that you use them on a daily basis in your classroom, virtual or not. Okay, I want to talk more, but I promised myself 5 minutes on this slide, and that was it. I've gone over already. Wrap it up, Perez. Wrap it up. Well, I think I will. Final thoughts here on this last slide. If everything has gone according to plan, which usually it does, you'll have follow-up videos for you to watch. Go ahead and jump into those whenever you're ready. Hopefully this little welcome video got you set up and in the right mindset for which to approach lecture number 1, which again should be available to you. But for now, it is a nice warm evening, so I am going to open up an adult beverage that has bubbles and is in a bottle, and enjoy the sunset. You guys take care of yourselves for now, and I will catch you in lecture number 1.